The next time you're walking through the grocery store and that warm, savory smell of rotisserie chicken hits you, stop. That smell isn't just cooking, it's a calculated psychological trigger. It's called aroma marketing, designed to make you hungry, lower your guard, and convince you that you've found a loophole in the expensive world of modern food. A hot whole bird for just $5? It feels like you're winning. But for the last 5 days, I've been living on these birds, and I realized that the $5 chicken isn't a meal, it's a bribe. The store is willing to lose money on that chicken just to get you through the door, because they know that once you taste that salt-heavy, chemical-laden meat, your brain's reward system will ignore the fact that you're eating something that shouldn't legally be called fresh. After 5 days of tracking my blood pressure, my energy levels, and literally dissecting these birds on my kitchen counter, I found the dark truth. We aren't buying roasted chicken, we are buying industrial waste that's been resurrected by chemistry. I started at the bottom, Walmart. This is where the illusion is the thinnest. When you pick up a Walmart bird, you'll notice the container's heavy. You think, great, more meat for my money. You're wrong. If you look at the fine print, you'll see it's enhanced with a 15% solution. Think about that. Every time you buy a Walmart chicken, you are paying for nearly a pound of chemically treated saltwater. They use a phosphate blend, essentially a cousin to the stuff in your laundry detergent, to force the muscle fibers to swell up and trap water. When I opened the Walmart container, the skin was a wet, slimy mess. It had zero texture because it had been steamed in its own chemical runoff for hours. When I took a bite, it didn't feel like meat. It felt like a wet sponge. It's a biological fake. They've engineered a way to sell you water at the price of protein, and your body pays the price in a massive sodium spike that left me feeling bloated and dehydrated for hours. Then we have Meijer. If Walmart is about water, Meijer is about the visual lie. Meijer's birds often look the best on the shelf, perfectly dark mahogany skin. But that's not from slow roasting, it's from sugar. They coat these birds in a heavy layer of dextrose and caramel coloring. It's like putting a fresh coat of paint on a crumbling house. During my 5-day test, every Meijer bird I bought was a desert. Because these stores prioritize keeping the shelves full over quality, these birds sit under dry heat lamps for up to 7 hours. By the time you buy it, the heat has sucked out every natural juice, leaving behind a texture like sawdust. I measured the internal meat and it was bone dry, yet the skin was sticky from the artificial sugars. It's a total contradiction. A bird that looks delicious but tastes like a cardboard box. What I learned in the first 48 hours of this experiment is that at the bottom tier, the goal isn't to feed you, the goal is to move units. They use salt to hide the lack of flavor and sugar to hide the overcooking. But as we move into the mid-tier stores like Kroger and Target, the tricks become even more invisible. That's where we start talking about the chemicals that don't just affect the taste, they affect your health. By day 3 of this experiment, my body started to push back. I woke up with puffy eyes and a lingering thirst that no amount of water could fix. That's the rotisserie hangover. And it's exactly what happens when you step into the mid-tier world of Kroger and Target. This is where the marketing gets clever. You aren't in a warehouse anymore. You're in a fresh market environment. But if you look past the warm lighting, you'll find that these birds are even more processed than the cheap ones. Let's look at Target's Good and Gather brand. Target is a master of aesthetics. Their chicken is perfectly sized, perfectly colored, and comes in a neat, clean package. It looks like the healthy choice, but during my dissection, I found something unsettling. Target chickens often have a strange, almost soapy aftertaste. This comes from the heavy use of carrageenan. Think of carrageenan as a biological glue. It's extracted from red seaweed, and its job is to bind the fats and waters together so the meat doesn't fall apart. It creates what I call uncanny valley chicken. It looks like a bird, it cuts like a bird, but your brain knows something's wrong. The texture is too uniform, too perfect. Real meat has grain and variation. Target's bird feels like it was cast in a mold. And then there's the label trick. They market it as natural, but federal law allows natural to include that massive injection of salt and additives we talked about. It's a premium price for an industrial product. Then we have Kroger. This was the most dangerous part of my 5-day test. Kroger moves more rotisserie chickens than almost anyone else. And to keep up with that volume, they've turned their birds into a sodium bomb. I analyzed the nutritional data for the Kroger traditional bird. A single thigh and leg can contain nearly 800 milligrams of sodium. To put that in perspective, if you eat half that chicken for dinner, you've just consumed your entire salt limit for the next 24 hours. But why so much salt? It's not just for flavor. Salt is a preservative. It allows Kroger to keep these birds on the shelf longer without them tasting off. During my test, I noticed that the Kroger meat has a reddish tint near the bone. Most people think it's undercooked, but it's often a chemical reaction from the nitrates and phosphates used in the brine to keep the meat looking pink and fresh, even when it's been dead for weeks before hitting the oven. The real expose here isn't one single ingredient, it's the cocktail. In these mid-tier birds, I found traces of modified food starch and yeast extract. Yeast extract is a hidden form of MSG. It's designed to overstimulate your taste buds, making you crave the chicken even though your body is screaming that it's too salty. It's a cycle of addiction. The starch holds the water, the carrageenan holds the fat, and the yeast extract keeps you coming back for another bite. By the end of day 4, I wasn't eating because I was hungry. I was eating because these chemicals were hacking my brain's reward system. We've seen the bottom. We've seen the deceptive middle. Now, for the final part, we have to look at the two giants that define this industry. The $4.99 legend of Costco and the organic gold of Whole Foods. One of them is a miracle and the other is a ticking time bomb. By day 5, I hit the wall. My blood pressure was up, my digestion was a mess, and I finally understood that the convenience of grocery store chicken comes at a massive physiological cost. But I couldn't finish this investigation without looking at the two icons of the industry, Costco and Whole Foods. This is the ultimate showdown between mass production and premium quality. We have to talk about the Costco rotisserie chicken. It is a cult object. People write songs about it. At $4.99, it stayed the same price for decades, while everything else in the world got more expensive. But here's the expose. Costco isn't selling you a chicken. They are selling you a loss leader. They lose tens of millions of dollars a year on these birds just to get you into the back of the warehouse. But how do they keep it that cheap in 2026? By industrializing the bird to a terrifying degree, to meet the demand, Costco's chickens are bred to grow at an unnatural speed. This has led to a condition called wooden breast syndrome. If you've ever bitten into a Costco chicken and felt a strange, crunchy, or tough texture, that's not undercooked meat. That's scarred muscle tissue from a bird that grew faster than its own circulatory system could handle. When I analyzed the Costco bird on day 5, I found it to be the most alien of them all. The breasts are enormous, almost deformed, and the meat has a distinct chemical afterburn from the massive amounts of preservatives needed to ship these birds across the country in such huge volumes. It's a miracle of logistics, but it's a disaster for your palate. Then I went to Whole Foods. This is the only part of the experiment where I felt like I was eating actual food. Whole Foods is the only major chain that consistently avoids the phosphate trap. Their birds aren't injected with the same laundry list of stabilizers and water-binding chemicals. When I did the fibers test, the difference was night and day. The Whole Foods chicken pulled apart in natural, clean grains. The skin wasn't glued on with sugar or carrageenan. It was just seasoned and roasted. It's sold in a paper-based container instead of a plastic steam room, which means the skin stays relatively crisp. Yes, it costs twice as much as Costco, but after 5 days of eating lab-engineered meat, the Whole Foods bird was the only one that didn't leave me feeling like I needed a medical detox. It's the only bird that tasted like it actually came from a farm, not a factory. After 5 days of this investigation, the conclusion is undeniable. Most grocery store rotisserie chickens are not a life hack, they are a compromise. The bottom tier, Walmart and Meijer, you are paying for saltwater and sugar painted skin. For three, the mid-tier, Kroger, Target, you are paying for biological glue and dangerous sodium levels hidden behind fancy branding. The Costco legend, you are paying for a distorted, fast-grown bird that's more about a price tag than a protein. If you value your health, your energy, and your taste buds, there are only two real choices. Either pay the premium for the Whole Foods organic bird, or better yet, buy a raw chicken, salt it yourself, and put it in your own oven for an hour. The plastic dome is a trap. The $5 price tag is a bribe. I'm done with grocery store rotisserie chicken, and after seeing the data, you should be too.